Yo, what's popping? We have the post mid-season madness power rankings. Above me is what I rated the teams entering the tournament, but there have been some changes as a result of this absolutely thrilling week-long tournament. So I'm gonna speed past the bottom 15, right? Because none of these teams played. How could I rate them? So gonna remain with Paris, Vancouver, Charge, New York, LA, and LA Valley, and then Washington. The Charge, yes, they did do a pretty big roster overhaul, but I can't really rate them like based on that yet because I haven't done anything with it. I'm very willing to move them up quite rapidly because of the changes if they do perform, but I'm not going to rate it based on what they might do. They need to actually show a little bit of something first. So I don't even know where I believe Charge will end up. It's so hard to know, but probably I can't even say. Maybe Chengdu level, maybe above Chengdu. They still have some pretty big issues. So anyway, that's enough on them. That's not what this is about. This is about number 14, staying the Toronto Defiance. Toronto did play. They end up playing Shanghai first and then Houston, and they lose both of those games. They do have a 2-1 lead over Houston before losing. So yeah, I guess that's something, but I don't know if teams below them or even directly above them would have had a worse result. They looked okay sometimes with the Twilight hitting sick flanks, and Twilight did have a good series, and it wasn't awful, but they were pretty obviously, I think, to me, the worst team in the tournament, especially after Florida turned it around a little bit. I thought it was going to be Florida. They proved me wrong there. So, or well, I didn't think it was going to be Florida. I thought it looked like it was going to be Florida until they turned it around. But I can't really rate Toronto. This is kind of where I thought they would be. They didn't really perform better than my expectations, so they just end up being the same. And then, of course, because of that, the two teams, well, and I guess it doesn't matter. So Chengdu Hunters stay there. I was considering moving them up because I think I kind of low underrated them in my last one because I put them below Boston. But at the same time, I don't know. I feel like I'm not going to go back on that, but I could definitely see Chengdu being above Boston right now. But whatever. I made that decision. I'm going to stick with it. So the Florida Mayhem have moved up. How far have they moved up? Well, not that far. Well, actually, kind of far, I guess. Because now we have the Dallas field. So Dallas ends up dropping from ninth to 11th, and they have a pretty poor performance. They get 3-0'd by Shanghai, and then they get 3-1 by Philly, and then they just lose. Their strategies just never really showed what they wanted from them. The Moira Lucio, the Doomfist they played a little bit of. I don't know. The hive mind wasn't there. Gurio being in so often really hurts this team because the Gurio roster is just not as good as their other rosters and as other hit scans in the league. And I think trying to force Gurio to be your guy hurts them, especially in this tournament. Now, if they keep believing in him and they say Gurio is our guy moving forward, we're going to keep believing in him until it works. We'll see if it ends up working by the time you get to playoffs, but that could backfire pretty horribly if it doesn't work out, and then you're trying to do something brand new for playoffs. But I don't know. We'll see. I kind of trust Rush, but at the same time, I trust Rush for like compositions, and I don't even think he did it well here. So I don't know. I don't know what Dallas's fate is moving forward. It's a pretty sad tournament for them. It was a good chance to turn it around, but they just couldn't, and they end up falling in the first, like as the first team, one of the first four teams to fall. Another one of the first four teams to fall, the London Spitfire, who actually are in the exact same spot as I rated them. So shout out to me for rating them correctly, I guess. London looked like they were going to be very good, right? They beat Atlanta, who go on to become third place, but then they get reverse swept by Florida after losing or before losing the shock or after losing the shock. Yeah, because they go Atlanta, then they lose the shock, and then they lose to Florida. Um, and it's just tragic. Uh, London, they're like Atlanta's kryptonite, so they send them to the lower bracket. I'm sure of that now. The loss against Shock is rough, but it's the Shock. You can't be too upset that you lose to the Shock. It's kind of expected. But losing to Florida, that stings. They had them. They had it all. And we keep saying this roster is making good strides. If they do another like first round exit in the next tournament or something, where you're gonna need some more from them because Florida ended up figuring out that Sparker was actually the carry, right? The Hottie's a mirage of a carry. He's not really the carry of this team. He's very impactful in the Reinhardt, no doubt, but it is Sparker first and foremost. Florida figured that out, shut him down, and London were left breathless, right? They didn't have an answer. And that kind of hurts them. If more teams recognize this moving forward, they're in a rough spot. And also depending on the meta shift, because right, new patch, we'll see what it looks how it looks there. I think the Reinhardt will still be good, so nothing to worry about there, probably. But London just not able to finish out Florida. And if they beat Florida, they go on to play Philly. Maybe they win. Maybe they beat Philly, and Philly was fourth place, right? So it's just that easy for London, but they got figured out by Florida of all teams, and because of that, directly above them is Florida. So Florida looked really bad. They looked horrible against Houston, and they looked really bad in the first two matches against London. But after those two matches, in the halftime, something changed for them. They figured out their issue, and they went for it. And then they actually put up a very good fight against Philly also, losing to Philly 3-2. They're a fighting team. Xe really popped up. I was thinking this whole time, this whole stage, I was like, I like Hydron more than Xe. Xe proved me wrong here. Xe went crazy. Someone went super crazy. Someone was playing phenomenally. The aggression was there, and he toned down the over aggression. So Florida was able to be super aggressive, have Xe just clicking heads, and it was great. I don't like that they're playing Rupal Animo as much as they have been. I think Sherman has been not phenomenal, but he's been very good. His playstyle fits in a lot of cases, and I think they still have a better chance with Sermajed playing more. But whatever. They did well. They did better than I thought they would, and they end up being number 9 on my power ranking. So number 8 was the Spark. Now it's the Shanghai Dragons who fall from 4th. So Shanghai had a kind of a rough go. They 3-0 Dallas, then they get 3-0'd by Shock, and then they get 3-1 by Atlanta. Shanghai, the whole thing was just, we have Fate, we have Wrecking Ball gameplay, we have Winston gameplay, we have some Doomfist gameplay they played. That's it. That's their entire bag of tricks. Lip did as much as he could for this team. But other than that, a lot of the time against Shock, against Atlanta, the team was just silent. Other than Lip, it wasn't a lot of fight back, it felt like. Fleta was very invisible, almost. Fate was getting shut down by the Doomfists on either side. The backline has been a little underwhelming compared to how we're used to them playing. And it just felt like the pieces were not all together for Shanghai. They looked like they could have been in the regular season, but they end up not being there in the postseason, or not even the postseason, in the Midseason Madness tournament. And they just don't get the job done. But they do stay 8th because I think they're a team that will only lose to the really top teams, it feels like. I think they are too strong to lose to some of the lower teams, like Dallas being 3 spots below them. Like 3-0 Dallas, right? I don't see them losing to any team below Dallas, or even below. Well, I could see them losing to Florida or London, but I can't see them losing to any team below Dallas in this current state. Now, next stage, of course, they're going to have a meta shift. Shanghai really struggles with those, so very well could be losses from teams below Dallas, but whatever. Anyway, number 7 going to be the Houston Outlaws, who moved down a spot, actually, for my last thing. So they 3-0 Florida dominantly, then they get 3-0 by Gladiators. Not horribly, but it was very much, it wasn't nearly as close as it was before. Gladiators were definitely better. And, of course they were better. They won the tournament, right? But there was a draw in that game. Oh, yeah, I forgot about that draw. Oh, and I forgot about New Queen Street. New Queen Street Gladiators full capped, and Houston didn't have anything. Oh, that was rough. But yeah, Houston kind of downgraded that how they played the Gladiators in the regular season, even though that was also a 3-0. And then they go down and lose to Atlanta. So the biggest thing with Houston is all the teams above them, all the good teams that placed high in this tournament, they did not play the Peel style. That is what Houston like cultivated, and they were a very Peel heavy team. None of the top teams are doing that, which kind of tells me that that playstyle wasn't as strong as maybe they thought it was. Um, it's so hard to peel for when against these top teams that are so good at that, and they're so efficient with it. So they end up not being able to actually successfully peel. Um, it's not horrible for Houston, right? This is kind of what we expected for the most part. I had some visions of a lower bracket run, but that was nothing. Uh, Against Atlanta, even I don't know. It was like okay, but I expect more from Pelican. I think is the biggest thing. Merritt played very well. I expected a little bit more from Pelican. Pelican needs to be their best player, and he was not, right? Merritt outperformed him. You could argue Dante outperformed him. And the map they won against Atlanta was because Pelican was their best player, right? Pelican stepped up, but as soon as he can't be that best player, as soon as he's getting shut down by Kai and whoever else, he got absolutely decimated against the Gladiators often. That was tragic. And Pelican needs to be their best player to win. I don't know. It's just like that. Number 6 is going to be the Philadelphia Fusion, who actually go up a spot and trade with the Houston Outlaws. So Philly do quite a nice run for themselves here, finishing 4th, but not 4th in my PRs because it's not quite the same thing. So they lose to the Spark and go to the lower bracket where they beat Dallas 3-1, beat Florida 3-2, and then beat Spark 3-2 to lose to Atlanta 3-1. So they get the revenge on Spark that they wanted. And of course they do. It's Philly against Spark. They're just always going to have the upper hand. Sure, why not? But I don't know. I feel like this team is so much dependent on Zest and MN3 and Bellisria doing so much because their backline is very heavy. Fixa did not impress me. Aim God did not impress me. Aim God fragged out a little bit against Atlanta and against Spark, I guess. But his Transcendence usage, I don't love it. I think it's missing sometimes. And it really is just how far can this DPS core carry them. And once you get into DPS cores of Atlanta and the LA Gladiators and the Shock, it can't. So it got them past Spark. I really didn't think it would, but they're just Spark's kryptonite, I guess. So kind of like a London Atlanta situation, I think. But yeah, they're a really good team, and they were on, and they make 4th place, so solid for them. But they did not make my 5th on the PRs, which is going to be the Spark, who I have increased from 8th. So the thing about the Spark is they had such a good run, right? It's just tragic that they faced Philly again in the lower bracket. They almost beat the Gladiators in the upper bracket. It was such a close game. One of my favorite games of this tournament. There were so many good games to choose from, right? But that one was spectacular as well. So yeah, Spark beat Philly 3-1, beat Seoul 3-0, and send them to lower bracket. Then they lose to the Gladiators 3-2, and then lose to the Philadelphia Fusion 3-2. I don't know. Shy is immaculate. Shy was so good. He's so good. And the backline was actually impressing me a bit. I thought that Spark as a team did play better than Philly, but Philly just where it was able to pop off more. Their DPS popped off more consistently. Zest outperformed Alpha Yi in that final game. And that's why they didn't make it that far. But I still think this team is a better team overall than Philly. Their strategies are more consistent. You can't rely on your DPS popping off all the time. Yes, I say that, and it's very hypocritical because they rely on Shy so much. But I think they rely on Shy so much, but also as a team, I like what they're doing more. I think Bernard's flexibility has actually been very good. His ball gameplay has gotten better. I think I like it a lot. I do wish he was a little bit more on the Doomfist. I think they could play the Doomfist a bit more, especially whenever Bellisria was on the ball so much. But whatever. I guess I'm talking a lot about that game, but that's the game they lost. And that's the argument for why Philly should be above them, really. But I think if you play that game 100 times, Spark win more times than Philly win, is what I think. So I'm going to keep Spark at 5th. And number 4 is going to be the Seoul Dynasty. So yes, Seoul dropped out of the tournament early after losing to Spark and losing to Atlanta. But those are two phenomenal teams, right? And maybe Seoul did not come to play, but I'm not going to negate all of the work they have put in before going into this tournament. They're still a top team. We cannot lose sight of them having a bad game and then losing to the team that would come third. We cannot. I think if Seoul ends up beating Atlanta there, they make that same run. Maybe even better, probably not better, but maybe. There's always a chance it's Seoul. I don't know. I'm not going to hunt down the Seoul Dynasty, drop them a ton of spots. Yeah, I've dropped them 3, which is a lot. Going from 1 to 4 is a lot whenever you get up this high. But I cannot put them that low. I think that they are a better team than Spark still. Yeah, Spark got the 3-0, sure. Does not mean that Spark are the better team as a whole. Seoul will be right back at top form. An off game, not going to do it for me. Because all the pieces are still there. It's all still there. It's not like it's been a consistent breakdown. The next day they were right back at it. They were doing their thing. Just Atlanta was a better team. So yeah, I'm still going to rate Seoul the best APAC team because I think they are. But number 3, probably no surprise, it's going to be Atlanta Reign at this point. The tournament kind of sorts itself out, right? I can just drop this. Whoops, I can just drop this now. It's obvious. But yeah, Atlanta make the stunning lower bracket run. It's playoff Atlanta, right? Regular season, they don't really care about the regular season because why bother, right? It's all that matters is the playoffs. No one really cares how good your regular season is once you're in these tournaments, right? Atlanta, they go in as lower seeds all the time. Doesn't really matter to them. They're used to it. They're used to playing as like that bully underdog team that's not even underdog, but they're just like, I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. They go in with the lower seed and they don't care. They just don't care. Yeah, I don't know. Kai is great. I think Hawk really impressed me this tournament. I'm willing to put Hawk on the same level as Reiner right now. I am, or not better, but on the same level and a little bit worse, I would say. Whenever I do my role tier list, which will be coming up in the following week today or whatever. But yeah, Hawk impressed me a lot, and nothing really let me down from Atlanta here. They just lose to London and then do their thing. And then Shock, as a team, they're still heavily reliant on Proper. And I thought the decision making was really bad. If you haven't seen my overview of their last game, I went on about like for 10 minutes about how Mikey should not have been playing all that time. But I think they kind of psyched themselves out here. I don't know if they make these same errors again moving forward. And right now, I still like them. I think they're a very good team. Proper's that guy. Proper is so good. Proper this whole tournament has convinced me that he's probably the go-to guy for. He has to be in every single discussion, and he has to be a serious contender for Rookie of the Year, MVP, the whole thing. But yeah, finally the Gladiators. They win the tournament, right? They're so good. They're so good. Just a well-oiled machine. Kevster played very well. Patafon played extremely well. Reiner had some moments where he was kind of caught out, and it was like, I don't know about that one, Reiner, but he makes the crazy play in the final fight. Not even a crazy play. He just makes a smart play to hunt down Mikey and force the C9 that happened. This team, every piece of this team is so talented. I didn't even mention the backline, and the backline's so good. Funny Astro is probably the best Lucio in this league, right? And then skewed on the Zenyatta and Shu was crazy. This whole team, there's no problem with this team. You cannot pick out an issue. And you have to, and this whole team is just so good all around, and they're so good together that even though each of their players have the ability to make star plays, and they do make the star plays, they, as a team, are so good together. And that's what sets them apart from some of these top teams. Shock relies on Proper. Atlanta, Atlanta are kind of similar to them, but not quite the same because they're a little bit worse, I think. but Atlanta rely on Kai oftentimes. Philly heavily rely on the DPS. Shanghai relied on Lip so much, and Spark rely on Shy so much. So all of these teams kind of rely on a core piece. Gladiators don't rely on a core piece. They rely on their whole team gelling together well, and each of them popping off. So that's the biggest difference maker for Gladiators. No other team is doing it like them at the top right now, and they really are a very special team, and they're so good. So that's going to be my tier list, my power rankings rather. Like this video if you like it, subscribe for more daily Overwatch League content. Comment down below your thoughts, and thank you so much for watching. Have yourself a good one.